After witnessing the explosion of the cruise ship I was on, Chloe Sterling, the ruthless and beautiful CEO who dominated the business world, simply snapped. Her best friend, terrified she would throw herself into the deep sea to follow me in death, knocked her out cold. Once at the hospital, Mrs. Sterling made a swift decision, ordering the doctors to keep her sedated within 4 drip. "She can't wake up until the rescue teams find Ethan," she commanded, "because no one can control her when she's like this, not even me." But 3 days later, despite the heavy sedation, she jolted awake from a nightmare of me vanishing before her eyes. She ripped the 4 from her arm and walked out of the room. She began a frantic search for me, and no one could stop her. They could only watch as she chartered dive boats, determined to find her beloved in the depths. One night, she nearly drowned. On the way to the hospital, her heart stopped multiple times. When she finally woke up again, she was suffering from aphasia, unable to speak. After that, a woman in a hospital gown became a fixture at the entrance to Pier 1. The regulars all knew her story, that her love was lost at sea, and she waited there for him, day after day, in silence. One day, Mrs. Sterling came to her, her expression pleading. "Chloe, I'm begging you, please come home. The company needs you. Sterling Industries can't survive without you. I'm getting old, Chloe. I might not be around for much longer." Chloe, who hadn't uttered a word in over 2 months, stared blankly at her mother. After a long, painful silence, she finally spoke, her voice a raw whisper. "Mom, my Ethan, he's gone." Mrs. Sterling froze. In the fading light of sunset, she saw a single tear trace a path down her daughter's cheek. Her Chloe had always been so defiant, so strong, seemingly unbreakable. Now, she was as fragile as paper, as if the slightest breeze could shatter her. In early November, the first snow of the year began to fall. Chloe watched the flakes drift down, murmuring unconsciously to herself, "It's snowing hard enough. We should be able to build a snowman." Her assistant, Sarah, didn't understand what she meant. Everyone had assumed Chloe was finally moving on from the grief of my death, that she was returning to her old self, working, holding meetings, and seeing clients. But at 3:30 in the morning, she drove out to our estate, Gardenside. When Sarah finally found her, Chloe was in the backyard, building a snowman in the fresh powder. And then, she simply fell asleep in the snow beside it. When Maria, the housekeeper, hurried out, the scene sparked a memory. "It was about this time last year," she recalled. "Mr. Ethan had Miss Chloe come out with him, and they built the most beautiful snowman right in this yard." Hearing this, Sarah was struck with a chilling realization. Chloe hadn't moved on at all. Her recent recovery was a complete illusion. This snowman, shaped like a rabbit, was identical to the one she and I had built a year ago. Beside the snowman sat a small bucket and 2 tiny shovels, placed in the exact same positions as in the photo I had posted on Facebook a year ago. Eventually, Chloe returned to the corporate world, once again the formidable heiress of the Sterling family, a force to be reckoned with in New York City. But something had changed. She would end a meeting a minute early rather than stay a second late. Even though no one was waiting for her, she went home at the same time every day without fail. One night, Maria brought a late snack up to the 2nd floor for her. As she approached the bedroom door, she could hear Chloe's voice inside, speaking in a soft, gentle tone. "Last week was Jessica's baby shower, but a crisis came up at the office, so I couldn't make it. I had a gift sent over, though, 2 pairs of little silver bracelets for the baby. Christmas is coming up, so things are getting hectic at the office. I might have to work late starting tomorrow, so I won't be home at the usual time. But no matter what, I'll still be home before 7 p.m., just like you always wanted." When I got home today, I stopped by the greenhouse. The winter roses the gardener planted are doing beautifully. They're about to bloom. "I'll cut a few stems for you tomorrow and make an arrangement." Maria couldn't make out the exact words, but she could hear the unmistakable tenderness in Chloe's voice. Was she on the phone? She stepped forward and knocked gently. "Miss Chloe, I brought you a snack." The room was lit by 2 dim lamps, and Chloe was sitting in the large beanbag chair on the south side of the room. I had bought that chair. I used to sit there for hours, cross-legged with my laptop, writing. Now, Chloe sat there, her expression soft and gentle as she turned to Maria. "Just put it on the table. I'll have it in a little while." Maria didn't linger. "Of course, Mississippi." She set the plate down and, as she turned to leave, she glanced back at Chloe, bathed in the soft light. "It's getting late, Mississippi. You should get some rest." "You too, Maria. Good night." After leaving the room, Maria stood in the hallway for a long time, a strange feeling settling in her gut. Everyone else in the house believed Miss Chloe was finally back on track, that she had overcome the trauma of Mr. Ethan's death. But Maria felt she was trapped in a maze she couldn't escape. To her, the more normal Chloe appeared, the more wrong it all felt. The next morning, the Robertsons, partners on a major international project, stopped by the office while on vacation in New York. When the door opened and Sarah greeted them, Mr. Robertson looked visibly disappointed. He had been hoping to see the man he so admired. "Isn't Ethan in today?" Sarah's smile tightened for a fraction of a second before she graciously ushered them in, pouring 2 cups of hot tea. "I'm so sorry," she said politely. "Miss Sterling's meeting is just about to wrap up. If you wouldn't mind waiting just a few minutes." My death hadn't been publicly announced. Only close family and friends of the Sterlings knew the truth. Sarah hesitated for a moment, then decided to explain. "Ethan passed away almost 6 months ago." Hearing this, Mr. Robertson froze, his mouth falling open in disbelief. "He was in an accident in the Bahamas last September. He didn't make it." A heavy silence filled the room as the couple exchanged a look, unsure of what to say. Thankfully, Chloe arrived a few minutes later. The meeting was tense, with conversations stalling after only a few exchanges, punctuated by long, awkward silences. The Robertsons didn't stay long, leaving after about 15 minutes of strained small talk. After seeing them out, Sarah felt a knot of anxiety in her stomach as she approached Chloe. To land that contract, Chloe and I had attended a gala together. Mr. Robertson had taken a real liking to me, often inviting us both for drinks afterward. Sarah worried, would seeing the Robertsons today trigger painful memories for Chloe? Sarah approached cautiously. "Miss Sterling, the strategy department sent over a few new proposals. Would you like to review them in your office?" Chloe didn't say a word, merely nodding before getting up and heading out. Watching her expressionless face, Sarah thought that perhaps she had been worried for nothing. Maybe Chloe wasn't as fragile as she feared. At 6:30 that evening, as Chloe walked out of the building, Sarah was there to gently drape a warm coat over her shoulders. "Miss, your mother called. She said since Friday is Christmas Eve, she'd like you to wrap things up here and come stay at the family home for a few days." The driver pulled the car around. "Are you sure you don't need me to drive you to Gardenside, miss?" "It's fine, Sarah. Go home and take a few extra days off for the holiday this year." Chloe got into the car, and it quickly disappeared from Sarah's view. At 7 o'clock sharp, Sarah called the landline at the Gardenside estate. Maria answered and said Chloe hadn't arrived yet, guessing she was probably stuck in traffic from the heavy snow. At 8, Sarah called again. Still no sign of Chloe. Unable to sit still, Sarah grabbed her keys, left her apartment, and started driving around the city to find her. She called Olivia and my sister, Emily, for help. For the next 2 hours, they checked traffic cameras and scoured intersections, covering half of New York City before they finally found her at the Southside Night Market. They were all breathless and exhausted, but there was Chloe, calmly standing at a carnival stall, shooting at balloons with a toy rifle. A small crowd had gathered, drawn by the sight of the beautiful, impeccably dressed woman playing a simple game. Olivia stood with her hands on her hips, exasperated. "I drove through dozens of intersections, and she's here shooting balloons." Emily sighed, her eyes sore from staring at security footage for 2 hours. But through the crowd, she could clearly see the pile of blue cartoon cat plushies next to Chloe. A memory surfaced. "She and Ethan came to this market before," she said. "They played this exact game and won a ton of those Doraemon toys. Michael and I were with them." Hearing that, Olivia looked back at Chloe. What is she doing? It had been nearly 6 months since my accident in the Bahamas. In that time, Chloe's life had seemed to return to normal. She worked, and in her free time, she'd even meet up with her friends. There was no outward sign of anything wrong. Olivia had truly believed her heart was beginning to heal. Sarah then added, "She disappeared once before, 2 months ago, on the night of the first snow. We found her at Gardenside in the middle of the night, building the same snowman she once built with Ethan." Her words cut through the noise of the market, and for a few seconds, everything went silent. Emily's expression grew pensive. "Is she recreating her memories with Ethan? It looks like on the surface she's fine, but inside, she must be completely shattered. I need to call a psychiatrist, right now." The others waited by the road for half an hour before leaving, with only Sarah staying behind. As she walked toward the stall, she could hear snippets of conversation from the people around her. "Wow, she's a great shot. She's won so many of those toys. I heard she's winning them for her boyfriend. See? Look at her. You never win me cute stuffed animals." The stall owner chimed in. "She got here around 7, been at it for over 2 hours now. Seems like she's trying to win every last Doraemon on the block. With Christmas around the corner, I bet it's a big surprise for her sweetheart." Sarah didn't approach her directly, instead standing a few feet away, just watching. By now, Chloe had won nearly every Doryman prize on the street. Sarah found a vendor to borrow a small handcart from, then walked over and began gathering the pile of plush toys at Chloe's feet. When Chloe finally looked at her, Sarah offered a small lie. "The driver had an emergency, so he asked me to come get you." Chloe nodded, picked up a few of the larger toys and started walking. The Bentley was stuffed to the brim with the plushies. When they got back to the estate, it took several staff members to carry them all inside and up to the master bedroom. After the staff left, Sarah remained at the bedroom door, watching silently. Chloe took the Doryman toys and began carefully arranging them, one by one, on the large rug on the south side of the room, forming a circle of large and small figures. Once they were placed, she checked them over and over, making minute adjustments. Then, she went downstairs and returned with a bouquet of freshly cut red roses, which she placed in a vase on the nightstand. Sarah watched this silent ritual for nearly half an hour before finally speaking. "Miss Sterling, Mr. Wallace rescheduled your meeting for tomorrow morning." "He changed the time?" "Yes. He said something came up in the afternoon. Tell him we either meet at the original time or we don't meet at all." "Yes, Mississippi. I'll let him know." As she left, she glanced back one last time at Chloe. In the hallway, Maria stopped her. "Sarah, is she asleep?" "No. It's so strange. You could say she's not well, but she remembers every detail about work, every meeting time, perfectly. But then you see her tonight, running off to the Southside Market, and it's just not normal." "Maria, has anything else seemed unusual while she's been home?" Maria thought for a moment. "Well, she seems to be on the phone with someone a lot, just talking about little things from her day, but her voice is always so gentle." "Do you have any idea who she's talking to?" "No, I could never hear clearly." "I see. I'll check her call logs." "It's late, Maria. You should get some sleep." It was 11 by the time Emily got home, where her husband, Michael, was waiting in the living room. He stood up the moment she walked in. "Did you find her?" Emily took off her coat and led Michael by the hand toward the bedroom. "We found her. She was at the Southside Night Market, buying up all the Doryman toys." At this, a flicker of deep concern crossed Michael's face. He looked at Emily. "How is she, really?" "Olivia contacted a psychiatrist. He's flying into New York tomorrow to do a full evaluation." Meanwhile, in a house on the coast of Maine, I shot up in bed, gasping for breath. I remembered that day. I had rushed out of the cabin and seen her, Chloe, piloting the yacht straight for me. Then came a violent lurch and the world exploded. The blast deafened me, and all I could see was a blinding wall of fire. "Chloe, I'm on the deck. I'm waiting for you, Chloe." A caregiver and a doctor entered the room to find me sitting dazedly on the edge of the bed, repeating the same words over and over. Mrs. Davis, a woman in her late 50s, entered and hurried to my bedside when she saw I was stirring. Listening to my whispers, she turned to the doctor. "I pulled him from the water 6 months ago, and he's been saying that ever since. The medic on the boat said he shouldn't have made it, that he was holding on by sheer will. They rushed him to a hospital as soon as they made port, and it took them over 10 hours to stabilize him. Is he really awake this time? Or will he slip back into the coma?" The doctor checked the heart monitor, then leaned close, listening to my mumbling. He watched my lips for a moment. "It sounds like a name. Is it Chloe?" He tried to mimic the sound, whispering in my ear, "Chloe is here for you." Just then, the monitor beside the bed flatlined. My heart had stopped. 2 seconds later, it started again. I clutched the sheets as a wave of agony washed over me, my body arching in pain before I collapsed, limp, against the side of the bed. The doctor quickly reassured the frantic Mrs. Davis. "It's all right, he's stable. He's been through a near-death experience, and upon waking, his mind is still trapped at the moment of the trauma. Give him some time to orient himself, and he should return to normal. But he looks like he's in so much pain. Are you sure he's not in danger?" "He'll be fine. The man survived nearly 10 hours adrift at sea. He can handle this. His will to live is extraordinary. The person he keeps repeating the name of, she's the reason he's alive. He's not in any mortal danger." Back in New York, Sarah spent the night going through all of Chloe's call records but found no private calls, incoming or outgoing. Yet Maria was certain Chloe had been talking to someone. Left with no other choice, Sarah arranged to have a pinhole camera and a wireless microphone secretly installed in the master bedroom at Gardenside. While Chloe was staying at the family home for Christmas, Sarah contacted the psychiatrist. That afternoon, Olivia arrived at the Gardenside estate with Dr. Evans, just as Sarah was pulling up the feed from the hidden camera. Chloe's image appeared on the screen. "I promised Mom I'd stay at the family house for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. but I'll be back before midnight on the 26th to spend the rest of the holidays with you. Your parents were here today. They tried again to convince me to move on, to find someone else from a good family and get married. I wanted to tell them you're still here with me, but I knew they wouldn't believe it. Mother has Sarah watching my every move. They all think there's something wrong with me, but I go to work, I do my job, and then I come home to you. I feel perfectly normal. Ethan, please don't wander off again like you did the other day. I almost couldn't find you. In the video, Chloe was sitting in the beanbag chair, my old spot. She spoke softly, her gaze fixed lovingly on the circle of Doraemon toys on the rug, as if she were talking directly to me. After she finished, she stood up, walked to the bed, closed her eyes, and fell into a peaceful sleep. The short video clip left everyone in the living room in stunned silence, almost afraid to breathe. Olivia was the first to speak, her voice laced with fear. Has she completely lost touch with reality? Maria covered her mouth, her eyes filling with tears of pure sorrow. So all those times she'd heard Miss Chloe talking in her room, it wasn't a phone call. She had been talking to herself. Dr. Evans reviewed his notes several times before beginning his analysis. If I'm correct, Miss Sterling is conflating her dreams with reality. Take the snowman incident a few months ago. I suspect seeing the snow during the day triggered a dream that night, a memory of building it with Ethan. From that point on, she began seeing him so frequently in her dreams that she started to believe he was still alive, which prompted her to move back here to continue her life with him. This would also explain her saying, "Ethan, please don't wander off. I almost couldn't find you." She likely didn't dream of him for a couple of nights, and in her mind, that meant he had disappeared. Listening to the doctor's explanation, Sarah stared at the image of the sleeping Chloe on the screen, a profound sadness washing over her. It all made sense now. Why Chloe left work on the dot every single day. Why she rushed home, even though there was no one there waiting for her. Maria choked back a sob. What do we do? Is there any way to help her? She can't just live in a dream forever. They had all thought she was getting better, but the truth was, she had never begun to heal from my death. From the moment she woke up in that hospital in the Bahamas, she had been lost. Now, her condition had worsened to the point that she could no longer distinguish between reality and her dreams at all. The only true cure is for her to accept the reality of Ethan's death. But that's the challenge. She won't believe any of us. Our only option is to approach this through her dreams. I'll prescribe a mild sedative and some aromatherapy to reduce her REM sleep. If we can stop the dreams, she'll stop seeing him. Dr. Evans's words, along with the prescriptions, were relayed to Mrs. Sterling, and a courier delivered them to the family home within the hour. Standing in the grand foyer, Mrs. Sterling looked at an aromatherapy diffuser and steeled her resolve. She had to bring Chloe back, whatever it took. The dead were gone. The living had to keep living. That Christmas was a somber affair for the Sterling family. The moment Christmas dinner was over, Chloe was already trying to leave for Gardenside. Her mother managed to convince her to stay the night, but before dawn the next morning, Chloe was downstairs, ready to go. Her older sister, Amelia, who had been up all night, rushed to block her path. The staff is all here for the holiday. Why are you going back to Gardenside alone? Ethan died in the Bahamas 6 months ago. Chloe, you have to stop pretending. What are you talking about? He's here. He's here? Then bring him out. Let us see him. Chloe, when are you going to accept that he is dead? Amelia had hoped her words would shock Chloe back to her senses, but instead, Chloe shoved her so hard she fell to the floor, her eyes bloodshot as she glared down at her sister with pure hatred. By the time Mrs. Sterling arrived, drawn by the noise, all she saw was Chloe's retreating back. A blizzard was raging outside, but Chloe walked straight into it without a moment's hesitation, heading for Gardenside. The first day back at Gardenside, Chloe flew into a violent rage, smashing anything she could get her hands on. On the third day, she swallowed a handful of sleeping pills. An ambulance rushed her to the hospital to have her stomach pumped. Before the sun was up, she had ripped out her 4 and returned to the estate. By the 4th morning, she was burning up with a fever that refused to break. A frantic Mrs. Sterling rushed to the estate, her face pale with worry. How is she? Is the fever down? Maria could only shake her head. It won't break. We've had several doctors here all night, but nothing is working. Mrs. Sterling sighed, looking down at her unconscious daughter. Ethan is gone, and now I'm going to lose her too. I can't save her. If this is the only way, then we'll just have to pretend Ethan is still here. For the next few days, the staff secretly mixed the sedatives into Chloe's food as instructed. As a result, she stopped dreaming, and when she woke, she couldn't find me. The absence was unbearable for her, so she tried taking sleeping pills again, which only brought back the raging, unbreakable fever. Mrs. Sterling was terrified Chloe would lose her will to live, or worse, simply never wake up. All they could do was take it day by day, trying to buy her more time. Just before dawn, Chloe's fever finally broke, though she remained deep in sleep. Every aromatherapy diffuser in the house was turned off. Sarah approached Mrs. Sterling. "Ma'am, I found the voice actor you requested. When Miss Chloe wakes up, he'll be ready to call and imitate Mr. Ethan's voice." Since they couldn't pull Chloe from her fantasy, her mother decided to let her live in it. It was the only way she could think of to keep her daughter from slipping away completely. Mrs. Sterling gave a small nod. Her husband had died 4 years ago, and her son-in-law 6 months ago. She couldn't bear to lose her daughter too. The once impeccably poised woman had aged years in the last 6 months, her hair now completely white. "Tell the entire family, and all the staff, that from now on, we act as if Ethan is still alive. If she wants to live in a dream, then we will all play our parts to make that dream as real as possible." At that very moment, in a small coastal town in Maine, Mrs. Davis heard from her caregiver that I was awake. She dropped what she was doing and rushed upstairs. When she entered my room, she found me weakly dragging myself around, searching for something. "What are you looking for?" I stopped and looked up at the kind-faced woman standing a few feet away, then raised my hand to my ear in a phone gesture. "You want to make a call? To your family? I'll get you a phone right now." The caregiver quickly brought a cell phone. My fingers moved on their own, dialing the familiar 10-digit number. I pressed the phone to my ear, my mind chanting a single prayer. Asterisk answer. "Chloe. Please answer the phone." Asterisk back in New York. Chloe was just waking up. Sarah went upstairs to check on her and saw a phone vibrating on the coffee table. Its screen lit up. "He's half an hour early," she thought, surprised. She picked up the phone and brought it to the bed. "Miss Chloe," she said, her voice steady. "It's Ethan. He's calling you." Chloe's eyes flew open. She snatched the phone and pressed it to her ear. "Ethan, I'm here," I managed to say. I hadn't spoken in 6 months, and my voice was a raw, hoarse whisper. Took a few tries to get the words out. "Chloe, I'm here too." The call ended 3 minutes later. Chloe threw back the covers and headed for her walk-in closet. Sarah rushed after her. "Miss, are you going somewhere?" "Yes, Ethan's coming home. I'm going to the airport to get him." Sarah watched her go, a deep frown creasing her forehead. She looked down at the phone. She hadn't mentioned anything about an airport to the voice actor. The script was just to tell Chloe to rest. Had he gone off script after getting paid? Just then, Sarah's own phone rang. She answered it. "Miss Sarah, just calling to go over the lines one more time." "What? But you just called, didn't you?" "No, ma'am. We're scheduled for 9 o'clock. That's still 15 minutes from now." Sarah froze. If the actor hadn't called, then who was on the phone with Chloe? Gripping the cell, she ran downstairs and redialed the number. Someone picked up after a few rings. "Excuse me, I'm looking for an Ethan. Was he the one who just made a call from this number?" There was a pause. "He is? Oh my God. Can you please tell me exactly where you are?" It turned out my rescuer was a kind woman who had retired to a quiet life in Maine. Sarah got her contact information and confirmed it. I was alive. The news that a man presumed dead for 6 months had survived was a shock to everyone. But after the initial astonishment, their first thought was of Chloe. If Ethan was alive, maybe Chloe could finally be okay. On the private jet back, watching the familiar skyline of New York City grow closer, a sense of peace finally settled over me. As soon as we landed, I hurried into the terminal. Mrs. Davis had told me everything. I'd been unconscious for 6 months. 6 months where everyone thought I was dead. I knew the people who loved me must have gone through hell. All I wanted was to see Chloe. Knowing her as I did, I was terrified of what she might have done to herself in her grief. When I walked through the arrivals gate, a crowd was waiting for me. Mrs. Sterling, leaning on a cane, my parents, Michael, so many familiar faces. But the one person I was desperate to see, Chloe, wasn't there. My mother threw her arms around me, sobbing. "Ethan, oh Ethan, we thought you were gone forever. We were so worried." I comforted my parents as best I could, then scanned the crowd again. "Isn't Chloe here?" My question seemed to make everyone realize she was missing. My father looked confused. "That's strange. She left Gardenside at 8:30 this morning. She said she was coming to meet you. It's almost noon. Where could she be?" Mrs. Sterling wiped a tear from her eye. "Let's all go home. We can figure this out there." Just then, snowflakes began to drift down from the sky, and my mother hurried to put a heavy coat on me. But before she could even zip it up, I took off. I pushed my way through the bustling crowd, running out into the snow, towards a lone figure holding an umbrella. I didn't stop until I crashed right into her arms. I wrapped my arms tightly around her waist. Where have you been? I was starting to think you weren't excited to see me. Chloe didn't say a word. One hand held the umbrella steady while the other wrapped around me, holding me so tightly it felt like she was trying to merge us into one person. She looked down at me, her gaze intense, oblivious to the people rushing past us. Then, she slowly rose onto her toes. The air was freezing, but her kiss was pure fire. Just as she started to pull away, I grabbed her hand, leaned down, and kissed her again. Chloe, I missed you so much. Ethan, she whispered, let's go home. Chloe pulled me closer, her hand gripping mine as if she was afraid I might disappear again. Watching us walk away, Emily started to cry. He's back, she said through her tears. She won't have to build snowmen alone at night anymore, or go to the market to win those toys. Michael gently wiped her tears away. They're going to be okay now. They're going to be very happy. That night, every light in the Gardenside estate was on to welcome us home. The moment we were inside, I collapsed onto the beanbag chair, and Chloe curled up right beside me, never letting me go. I held up my right hand and noticed in the light that my wedding ring was gone. We should go to a jeweler tomorrow and get new rings. The stores should be open again after Christmas, right? Chloe took my outstretched hand in hers, giving it a gentle squeeze. They're open. Lying there with my head in her lap, I was overwhelmed with gratitude. I had survived, and I was with her again. Chloe looked down at me, her expression full of love. Ethan, please don't ever disappear like that again. I've been looking for you everywhere, but I couldn't find you. I searched every street, every corner of New York, every place I thought you might be, but you were just gone. Seeing the pain in her eyes broke my heart. I sat up and wrapped my arms around her neck. I'm not going anywhere. From now on, I'm staying right here with you. On the drive home from the airport, Sarah had texted me, filling me in on everything that had happened to Chloe over the past 6 months. She had fought so hard, struggled so much, to the point where she needed psychiatric help. I gently cupped her face in my hands and pulled her into a tight embrace. Chloe, we're going to be together forever. We're never going to be apart again. The next morning, Maria made my favorite breakfast, ramen with 2 fried eggs on top. Chloe poured me a glass of warm milk, which I downed in 2 gulps before digging into my noodles. But after a few bites, I could feel her eyes on me. I looked up and met her intense gaze. Why are you staring at me like that? Eat your food. Ever since the airport, she hadn't stopped staring at me, as if she was afraid I'd vanish the second she looked away. It was starting to make me feel a little self-conscious. After we eat, we're going to the mall to order our rings. And you are not allowed to stare at me like that anymore. Got it? Chloe nodded obediently, but she couldn't help herself. As she ate, she would glance up at me every few seconds, as if checking to make sure I was still real. Before we left, Chloe carefully placed a warm beanie on my head, then took my hand, pulling me close under her umbrella as we walked out. At the jewelry store, a sales associate greeted us warmly. I explained what we needed, and she measured our fingers, telling us the rings would be ready for pickup in 3 days. I turned to Chloe. I'm just going to use the restroom. I'll be right back. Wait here. Chloe was silent for a few seconds, her eyes locked on mine, her grip on my hand tightening unconsciously. Just then, the associate returned with the receipt, breaking the spell. Chloe's expression softened. Okay, Ethan, hurry back. I will. Even as I walked away, I could feel her eyes on my back. The associate approached Chloe and had to call her name several times before she responded. Only after I had completely disappeared from view did she finally turn her head and murmur a soft, yes. In her world, for the last 6 months, I was always disappearing. Sometimes she could find me, but other times I was simply gone. Like just a few days ago, when she had searched for me frantically, finding nothing. She had been on the verge of a complete breakdown when I called, telling her I was coming home and to meet me at the airport. She had rushed there and waited for 6 long hours. As I walked back down the hall from the restroom, Chloe was sitting on the sofa inside the store, her eyes fixed on the empty space where I had been. I was gone again. Seeing the empty space, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Where would I turn up next? The night market? The bakery downtown? That little alleyway we loved? Or would I be gone for days this time, just like before? The moment I stepped back into the store, our eyes met. Her face instantly lit up with pure, unadulterated relief. I walked over, leaned down to look at her closely, and then smiled, gently pinching her cheek. What's with that look? I thought you weren't coming back, she whispered. I just went to the bathroom. Why wouldn't I come back? I would never leave you here alone. Chloe was quiet for a long moment before she looked up at me. Her eyes went to my hand, and she slowly, tentatively, tightened her grip, as if physically holding on to me was the only way to feel secure. It snowed for the next few days, and work was slow for Chloe, so she never left my side. No matter where I went, she kept me in her line of sight. I woke up several times in the middle of the night to find her wide awake, just watching me sleep. I secretly called Dr. Evans, who suggested that because I had, in her mind, returned from the dead, she was terrified of losing me again, hence the hypervigilance. One morning, I woke up to find Chloe still sound asleep. I kissed her cheek a few times and carefully slipped out of her embrace. Michael and Emily were back in town with the twins, and I was dying to see my little nephews. Hearing me on the stairs, Maria paused her cleaning. "Mr. Ethan, are you heading out?" "Yeah, I'm going over to Michael and Emily's. I'll be back after dinner." Chloe's still sleeping, so when Sarah gets here to take her to the office, just ask her to wait downstairs for a bit. Let Chloe get some more rest. With that, I grabbed my keys and headed out. At 8:30, Chloe groggily opened her eyes, instinctively reaching for me. The space beside her was empty. Her eyes shot open, and she sat up, scanning the room. Just then, a soft knock came at the door, and Maria entered. "Miss Chloe, Sarah is here. You have to go into the office today. Why don't you get ready and come down for some breakfast?" But Chloe didn't seem to hear her. She didn't respond, her gaze fixed on the empty side of the bed. Just like any other day, Chloe got up, dressed, had a quick breakfast, and left for the office. At 9:30, Sarah knocked and entered the CEO's office with a stack of files, ready for their morning briefing, but the office was empty. Chloe was gone. She searched the entire executive floor, but there was no sign of her. They had a meeting with international partners in less than an hour. Where could she be? At first, Sarah assumed something had come up, but after an hour of unanswered calls, a sense of dread washed over her. She immediately went to security to pull up the surveillance footage from every exit. Meanwhile, I was at my sister's place, happily bouncing one of the twins on my knee, when my phone rang. It was Sarah, and she was frantic. "Ethan, she's gone. I saw her walk into the building myself, but now she's nowhere to be found." I raced to the nearest NYPD precinct. Officers were already pulling up traffic camera footage from all over the city. Sarah rushed over the moment I walked in. "We still can't find her. All we know is she left the building through the west entrance at 10:30. We have no idea where she went." "Ethan, you've been with her constantly. Did she mention wanting to go anywhere?" I racked my brain, but we had just been staying at Gardenside. She hadn't mentioned wanting to go anywhere. Her behavior had seemed normal except for the constant staring. Just then, an officer called out to Sarah. "We've got her. She was spotted half an hour ago at a bakery downtown." I ran over to the monitor. The timestamp read 11:12 a.m. There was Chloe walking into the bakery. The place was crowded, but she sat all by herself in a secluded corner. Seeing her there, so alone, a sharp pain shot through my chest. I turned and ran out of the precinct, back into the snow. 10 minutes later, I burst through the doors of the bakery and headed straight for the corner table from the video, but the chair by the window was empty. I flagged down a passing waitress. "Excuse me, the woman who was just sitting here, did you see which way she went?" Chloe's striking appearance had made an impression. The waitress pointed toward the subway entrance. "She went that way. She bought 2 pieces of cheesecake, said it was her husband's favorite. Said he'd run off somewhere and she didn't know when he'd be back." Her words felt like a punch to the gut, and tears started streaming down my face. I wiped them away, thanked the waitress, and ran in the direction she'd pointed. I searched the area for hours, the snow falling around me, but there was no sign of Chloe. I searched all through the night and into the next afternoon, but she was gone. Throughout my search, Sarah sent updates. Chloe had been spotted at the bakery, then Lincoln Center, the Southside Night Market, the pond in Central Park. Every single place was somewhere we had gone together. As night fell, I parked my car just outside Greenwich Village. After getting out, I hurried into the labyrinth of narrow streets. Sarah had called 10 minutes earlier with a new lead. Chloe had been to the jeweler that evening to pick up our rings. I'd been searching for almost 40 hours, driving aimlessly. I came here on a hunch. Of all our special places, this was the one she hadn't visited yet. I prayed she would be here. The streets were packed with people. I pushed my way through, scanning every face, and then I saw her, sitting on the steps next to a little dessert shop, lost in the crowd. She was just sitting there quietly on the stone steps, watching the people pass by. Every time someone stopped at the shop, she would look up hopefully, and then, seeing it wasn't me, her gaze would fall again. The last person to leave was the 98th customer she had watched tonight. A few seconds later, a familiar pair of shoes entered her field of vision. The shoes she had bought for me. She stared at the shoes for a long moment before slowly lifting her head. Her eyes traveled up, and finally, she saw the face she had been searching for. A smile broke out on her face, but it quickly dissolved into tears. My heart clenched in my chest, and my own eyes burned with tears. I couldn't stop myself from scolding her. "Why did you run off like that? Do you have any idea how worried I was?" The words came out harsher than I intended, a mix of pain and panic. But Chloe didn't get angry. She just looked at my hand, then slowly reached out and gently took my fingers in hers. She looked down, a small, sad smile on her face, and then she wrapped her arms around me. "Ethan," she whispered into my chest, "don't ever leave me again." In that moment, the noisy, crowded alley seemed to fall completely silent. I looked down at the woman in my arms, holding me with all her might, tear tracks still wet on her cheeks. I gently stroked her cold face, all my anger gone. "I told you Michael and Emily were back in town with the babies," I said softly. "I wanted to go see them. You haven't been sleeping well, so I didn't want to wake you this morning. I was always going to come back tonight. I would never, ever leave you." I helped her to her feet. She'd been wandering for nearly 2 days, and her clothes were dusty. I had no idea how long she'd been sitting on those cold steps, but she was frozen through. I brushed her off as best I could, took her hand, and called Sarah. "I found her. We're in the village. I'm taking her to the hospital." I hung up and turned back to find Chloe staring at me. If I had just paid more attention, if I had seen the panic in her eyes this morning, she wouldn't have run out into the cold. I reached out and smoothed her messy hair back from her forehead. "You didn't even wear a coat. It's freezing out here. You have to dress warmer next time, okay?" She didn't say anything, just kept her eyes fixed on me. I sighed and squeezed her hand a little tighter. That evening, in her hospital room, I led Chloe to the bathroom. Before closing the door, I reassured her over and over. "I'll be right out here. I'm not going anywhere. Go on, take a nice hot shower and warm up." A moment later, I heard the shower start, but not 2 minutes passed before the water shut off and I heard her tentative voice. "Ethan, I'm here," I called back. It went on like that, her calling out my name every few minutes, just to make sure I was still there. Half an hour later, Chloe sat on the edge of the bed in a fresh hospital gown. I stood in front of her, gently drying her hair with a towel, carefully wiping around her ears and neck. When I glanced down, my eyes met hers. She was staring at me with that same unwavering intensity. A soft knock came at the door. It was Sarah. "Ethan, the doctors are all here." I straightened up, walked over to Chloe under her watchful gaze, said a few quick words, and then stepped out of the room. A team of specialists was waiting in the adjoining sitting area. Dr. Evans spoke first. "When I began my evaluation, before you returned, Miss Sterling was operating under the delusion that you were still with her." Michael looked confused. "But he is back now, isn't he?" "Yes, he is. But in her mind, she is still living in that dream. She cannot differentiate between the reality of your return and the fantasy she constructed. All she knows is that Ethan disappears, so she goes to find him. If we don't break this cycle, she will be trapped in it forever, endlessly repeating the pattern." "So how do we help her?" I asked. "The most direct path is to make her internalize the fact that you are alive, that you did not die in the explosion. Once she truly accepts that, she should be able to separate reality from the dream. We can provide support, but ultimately, Mr. Ethan, you are the key to her recovery." After a long discussion with the doctors, I returned to the bedroom. The moment I opened the door, Chloe's eyes snapped towards me. The look on her face was completely different now, pure, unadulterated joy. She was still sitting where I had left her, just as I'd asked, obediently watching television. I asked Maria to have some food sent over. It should be here soon. I sat down next to her. "Chloe, do you think I'm dead?" She didn't answer, just stared at me. I took her hand and tried a more playful tone. "So, did I die in that explosion in the Bahamas last September?" "No," she answered immediately. The denial was instant, almost before I'd finished the question. "Okay, then let's review. The yacht exploded. The search teams never found me. You waited at the pier for a month before your mother finally brought you back to New York. My funeral was a small affair. I was buried in the Sterling family plot. You didn't attend. After that, no one was allowed to mention my name, and you moved into a new villa at your mother's request. Then, at the end of November, it snowed, and you went back to Gardenside in the middle of the night to build a snowman. You moved back in, and on Christmas, you nearly attacked your own sister over me." As I spoke, I could see her composure beginning to crumble. I pressed on, my gaze unwavering. "You know better than anyone that I died in that fire, don't you?" "Ethan, I'm not dead, Chloe." I cut her off, speaking slowly and clearly. remember when I called you? I was rescued. I was in a coma in Maine for 6 months. I came back to New York a few days ago. That wasn't a dream, it was real. I'm right here, and I am not dead." We stared at each other in silence for what felt like an eternity. I sighed internally. I knew this was going to be a long fight. I never expected to pull her out of this with just a few sentences. Chloe stayed in the hospital for 3 more days. And just like before, her eyes followed me everywhere I went, never leaving me for a second. "Chloe, in any of your dreams before, did I ever stay with you for 3 whole days without disappearing? This isn't a dream. I'm real." She just kept looking at me, silent. I thought for a moment, then turned to Sarah. "Go ahead and process her discharge papers." "Yes, Mr. Ethan." After Sarah left, I gathered our things, took Chloe's hand, and led her out of the room. I looked down at her and gave her a small smile. "Let's go home. We'll figure this out together." The snow had finally stopped, and sanitation crews were clearing the streets. The drive from the hospital to Gardenside took about half an hour. Maria was waiting for us at the gate and rushed over as we got out of the car. "Sir, madam, lunch is ready. You can eat as soon as you come inside." I nodded, then paused, glancing at Chloe beside me. "Maria, Chloe won't be eating. Just set a place for me. She can just watch." "Sir, but she's in a dream," I said plainly. "You don't get hungry in a dream." Watching us walk away, Maria scratched her head in confusion. Was she just getting old? She couldn't make any sense of what I was saying. Dutifully, Maria brought out a single bowl of rice from the kitchen. She entered the dining room, looked from Chloe to me, and placed the bowl in front of me. "Sir, are you sure the madam doesn't want anything to eat?" I picked up my chopsticks, then paused and looked across the table at Chloe. "You don't get hungry in dreams, right, Chloe?" Without another word, I started to eat. I made a point of picking up all of Chloe's favorite dishes, making a show of savoring each bite. "Maria, this is amazing," I said with theatrical flair. "The garlic shrimp is perfect, and this poached fish is incredible. And these spring rolls are so crispy." Maria watched me, a nerve twitching in her eye, then glanced over at Chloe, who was sitting perfectly still in her chair. She suddenly felt a pang of pity for her. I finished my entire meal, wiped my mouth with a napkin, and then cupped my cheeks in satisfaction, beaming at Chloe. "That was so good, Chloe." Chloe stared at my smiling face for a long time, her own expression unreadable. She finally looked away and reached for her glass of water. But before her fingers could touch it, I stood up and moved it out of her reach. "You don't get thirsty in dreams, Chloe. You're still dreaming, so you can't drink this." Maria just stared, utterly baffled. I spent the rest of the afternoon by her side, strictly controlling her food and drink. That evening, she went into the study to do some work. Around 9, figuring she was probably done, I knocked and went in. She looked up as I entered. "I picked out a new outfit," I said, walking towards her. "Tell me if you think it suits me." As she watched, I untied my bathrobe and let it fall to the floor at her feet. I saw her expression shift, her breath catch in her throat. I walked over, smoothly scooped her out of her chair, and settled her in my lap. Then I leaned in close, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "So, what do you think of the outfit?" I might have been bedridden for months, but I still had a decent physique. "Do you like it?" Her hands instinctively gripped my arms, her gaze darkening with desire. She leaned in to kiss me, but I placed a hand on her shoulder, holding her back. She couldn't take it anymore. "Ethan, stop teasing me," she breathed. "I want you." Before she could finish, I gently pinched her cheek. "Chloe, this is a dream, and I'm dead. Dead people can't do that." I leaned down and gave her a quick, chaste kiss on the lips before standing up. Seeing the look of frustration on her face, I gently set her back on her feet, picked up my robe, and headed for the door. "Check my feet," I said over my shoulder. "Am I floating? I hear ghosts are supposed to fly. I wonder when I'll learn how." I paused at the door and looked back at her. "So, am I floating?" She was left completely flustered, patting her cheeks to cool down. She met my gaze but said nothing. As I opened the door to leave, I saw her subconsciously glance down at my feet. They were planted firmly on the floor, not floating. Just then, the door opened again, and I poked my head back in. "You know what they say about ghosts, they drain the life force from the living. So starting tonight, you can't sleep in the same bed with me. I had Maria make up the sofa for you. That way, you can still keep an eye on me, but you'll be safe." I closed the door before she could reply. The study fell silent again, and the woman in the chair was lost in thought. Late that night, Chloe finally left the study. The large house was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. As she walked down the hall, she met Maria coming up the stairs. The housekeeper's heart went out to her. "Madam, Mr. Ethan is already asleep. Can I get you a little something to eat?" Since they had come home, Chloe hadn't been allowed to eat a thing. Not lunch, not dinner, not even a cup of tea. Maria didn't understand what was going on, but she was too afraid to ask. Chloe didn't answer. She glanced at the digital clock on the wall. It read, December 21st, 2025, 11:34 p.m. She stared at it, dazed. She couldn't remember the last time she'd even looked at a clock. Seeing the date felt like waking from a long dream. She looked away. "No, thank you. It's late. You should get some rest." 2 dim lamps were on in the living area, where the sofa had been made up with sheets, a pillow, and a blanket. She walked to the bedroom door and saw my sleeping form on the bed. I was completely still, sound asleep. She looked down at the threshold. I had told her to sleep on the sofa, and she didn't dare to cross that line. She stood there for a long time before finally, with a sigh of resignation, she turned and went back to the sofa. Only when I was sure she had settled did I open my eyes. I sat up, slipped out of bed, and tiptoed to the door, peeking around the frame. I could see her sitting on the edge of the sofa, still as a statue, lost in thought. The next morning, when I came out of the bedroom, she was still sitting in the exact same spot. As I walked past, I noticed the dark circles under her eyes. "It's okay, Chloe," I said breezily. "Even if you didn't sleep a wink, you won't feel tired. You can't get tired in a dream." I went into the bathroom to get ready. When I came out, she was still sitting there. If her eyes hadn't been tracking my every move, I would have thought she was a statue. The silence stretched until I was standing in front of the mirror, choosing a tie. "Are you going out?" she finally asked. "Yeah. Your mom asked me to stop by the family house." "Why are you wearing a suit and tie to go there?" "She said there are some guests she wants me to meet. Told me to dress up." "What guests?" I blinked innocently. "No idea." Breakfast was an elaborate spread of all of Chloe's favorite foods, but there was no place set for her. Just like the day before, she sat across from me and watched me eat. You don't get hungry in a dream, but she was starting to feel the pangs of real hunger. Chloe said nothing, sitting there impassively. When I finished eating, she got up and left the house with me. Sarah drove us away from the estate. The whole way, I was engrossed in my phone, my thumbs flying across the screen as I texted someone. Half an hour later, the Bentley pulled into the long, tree-lined driveway of the Sterling family mansion. The place was unusually busy. A dozen other luxury cars were already parked outside. As soon as they stepped into the foyer, Chloe could hear the sound of cheerful chatter and laughter coming from the grand living room. The family butler explained, "We have many guests today. Mrs. Sterling is in high spirits." I cut in at the perfect moment. "Mr. Carson, are my parents here yet?" "Yes, sir. They arrived about an hour ago." Hearing this, a sense of unease washed over Chloe. She turned to me. "My in-laws are here too?" My father had recently had successful surgery and was recovering well, but his doctor had strictly ordered him to stay indoors during the cold weather. What could possibly be so important that he would be here? While Chloe hesitated, I followed the butler toward the living room. She snapped out of it and hurried to catch up. When Chloe entered the living room, she was met with a startling sight. The room was filled to capacity with unfamiliar faces. I was already seated next to her mother, engaged in a lively conversation. From a corner of the room, a young woman stood up. "Hello, Ethan. My name is Isabella. I'm 23, currently studying literature at Yale. My parents are in real estate, so we're quite comfortable. Mrs. Sterling mentioned you were also a literature major. With our shared interests, I'm sure we'd have plenty to talk about and would get along wonderfully." She was poised and spoke with an academic air. As I smiled at her, I snuck a glance toward the doorway. Chloe's expression was darkening by the second, her face a thunderous mask. As the minutes ticked by, a dozen more young women stood up to introduce themselves. Mrs. Sterling kept a pleasant smile on her face, but she leaned over and whispered nervously in my ear, "Chloe is getting angry." After 15 accomplished young women had presented themselves, it was painfully obvious what this was. A matchmaking session. For me, I subtly glanced over at Chloe, who was now sitting alone in an armchair in the far corner of the room. "I can see that," I murmured back. "Should we continue?" Mrs. Sterling wiped a bead of sweat from her palm. "Dr. Carter should be here any minute." If the other women were kindling designed to make Chloe smolder, then Dr. Grace Carter was the dynamite. Before Mrs. Sterling had even finished her sentence, the butler was escorting Grace into the room. The moment Chloe saw her, her face went from dark to pitch black. Before Chloe could say a word, I spoke up. "Grace, come, sit over here." Mrs. Sterling eagerly made room for her on the sofa right next to me. Grace just returned from her fellowship 3 months ago, and she's now internationally certified. Isn't that right? The youngest board-certified surgeon in her field. Grace smiled modestly. You're too kind, Mrs. Sterling. Grace and Ethan have known each other since they were children, so they're already well acquainted. With that foundation, it should be easy for them to reconnect. A little time, and I'm sure they'd make a lovely couple. Mrs. Sterling clapped her hands, making the decision for me. So, Ethan, what do you say? Why not give it a try with Grace? Mom! Chloe's voice cut through the room. Mrs. Sterling paused for only a second before continuing as if uninterrupted. Just go on a few dates, see if you get along. If you do, wonderful. Grace nodded agreeably. Whatever Ethan wants. But before I could respond, a shadow fell over me. A hand grabbed mine, and Chloe pulled me up from the sofa and dragged me out of the room. The butler, seeing them coming, wisely stepped aside to avoid Chloe's wrath. He watched them leave, then let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He re-entered the living room. Mrs. Sterling, she's gone. Mrs. Sterling was fuming. I always said I would have been better off laying an egg. So fierce. She's just like her father was when he was young, with that same possessive streak. He was stern with everyone, even his own children, but with me he was all sweetness and light, would have given me the world. Chloe is his spitting image. Today's matchmaking party was my idea. Everyone else was just playing a part. Chloe could be furious with the whole world, but with me she was always gentle. Even in her anger, dragging me away, her grip on my wrist would tighten and then loosen, as if she was afraid of hurting me. She stormed out, but even then, she kept looking back to make sure I was keeping up. My father watched us go and patted his chest. I hope we only have to do that once. My mother nodded in agreement, then turned to Grace. Thank you so much for coming all this way in this weather, Grace. Of course, it was no trouble at all. In the Bentley, Sarah drove cautiously through the city streets, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. In contrast to her tension, I was perfectly relaxed in the back seat, tapping away on my phone, seemingly oblivious to the furious woman sitting next to me. Sarah risked a quick glance in the rearview mirror and immediately looked away. She could feel the rage radiating off Chloe in waves. Distracted, Sarah didn't see the pedestrian in the crosswalk until the last second. She slammed on the brakes, jolting the car to a stop. Madam, I am so sorry, she stammered. One look at Chloe's face and Sarah's voice trailed off. She lowered her head, her hands clammy with sweat. Thankfully, I broke the tension. It's okay, Sarah. Just keep your eyes on the road. Sarah let out a breath of relief. Thank you, sir. She turned back around, her focus entirely on driving, not daring to get involved any further. In the back, I turned to Chloe, whose face was still a mask of fury. I feigned innocence, blinking at her. You know, your attitude back there was really uncalled for. You should have been more gracious to our guests. You're supposed to be setting an example, after all. I leaned in closer. Chloe, are you angry with me? I was so close she couldn't avoid my gaze. I put on my most innocent, harmless expression, as if I truly had no idea why she was upset. Her eyes softened, the anger draining away. After a moment, she asked, her voice quiet, were you really looking for a date? Yep, I said cheerfully. The single word made every muscle in her body tense, her hands clenching into fists. I sat back a little, studying her face. You don't seem happy about it. Ethan, she said, her voice low and dangerous. I'm your wife. Hearing that, I had to hide a smile. Her tone was shifting. Just then, my phone buzzed with a new message. The screen was still lit up, open to iMessage. Chloe glanced down and saw the text from Isabella, asking me out to dinner. I saw her looking. I picked up the phone and, right in front of her, slowly typed out my reply, sounds good. I hit send and quickly moved the phone behind my back. A second later, just as I expected, her hand shot out to grab it, but she came up empty. Chloe, it's a dream, I said, gently patting her hand and giving her a reassuring smile. None of this is real. Me going on dates, marrying someone else, it's all just a dream. I'm dead, remember? Even if I did get together with someone else, it would only be in your dream. The real me is long gone, so it's impossible for me to cheat on you. Before she could respond, I turned to the front seat. Sarah, make a U-turn at the next light. Take me to the Rose Club. I have a dinner date. The Rose Club was New York's most exclusive restaurant for couples. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She glanced in the rearview mirror and met Chloe's icy stare. She quickly looked back at the road. Why yes, sir. 20 minutes later, the Bentley pulled up to the curb on Park Avenue. Sarah opened my door, and I got out. I leaned back in and waved at Chloe. You head home. I'll be back after dinner. Unless you're worried I might float away? You can come in if you want. Isabella is very sweet. I'm sure she wouldn't mind if I brought my wife along on our date. The woman in the car didn't move. I knew she wouldn't get out. She was probably debating whether to go inside and murder Isabella or just burn the entire restaurant to the ground. Well, you be good and head home then. I'm off to dinner. I closed the door. The windows were tinted so I couldn't see in, but I knew she could see out. I knew her eyes were on me, so I made a show of straightening my coat as I walked toward the entrance. The moment I was inside, the back window rolled down. Sarah, unfortunately, turned her head at that exact moment and met Chloe's gaze. She immediately lowered her head and stood frozen, awaiting orders. The warm air from the car's heater seemed to vanish, replaced by an arctic chill. Chloe stared at the restaurant entrance for a long time. After what felt like an eternity, Sarah finally worked up the courage to approach the car. "Madam," she asked tentatively, "should we go inside as well?" "No," Chloe snapped. Her tone was final. 10 minutes later, the restaurant's manager was escorting Chloe to a private VIP booth on the second floor. From there, she had a perfect view of the entire dining room, including my table. She was too far away to hear our conversation, but she could clearly see me smiling. What were they talking about? Why was he smiling like that? How could he look so happy? Sarah brought over a cup of tea, placing it carefully on the table. "Madam, please try to calm down. Tell me about the yacht explosion in the Bahamas again," Chloe commanded. "From the beginning." "Yes, madam." Sarah did as she was told, recounting the entire story, from the explosion to the present day, including every detail of what had transpired over the last 6 months. "When you were so sick with the fever, your mother had me hire a voice actor to impersonate Ethan, to call you, hoping it would bring you back. But we never expected that the call wasn't from an actor. It was really him. He had been rescued, was in a coma in Maine for 6 months, and the first thing he did when he woke up was call you. Your mother had a private jet bring him home that same day." Chloe remembered the rest. Waiting for me at the airport, bringing me home, returning to Gardenside, and then getting lost. Me finding her in the village, taking her to the hospital. And now this. Me telling her she couldn't be hungry or thirsty in a dream. Me not letting her touch me. Me going on a date in her dream. "Madam, here's some water." Sarah poured her a glass. Chloe looked at the glass of water on the table. A simple glass, half full. A person can go a week without food, but not 3 days without water. It had been 2 full days since she left the hospital, and I hadn't let her have a single drop. I had told everyone at the estate that she couldn't get thirsty in a dream, so she wasn't allowed to drink. She picked up the glass and drank. I got back to Gardenside that afternoon. As I walked in, I saw her Bentley parked in the driveway. The engine was probably still warm. She must have only beaten me home by 5 minutes. She had sat in that VIP booth the entire time, watching me have dinner with Isabella. I walked in to find her sitting on the sofa, engrossed in the Wall Street Journal. So focused it was as if she were dissecting every word. The sight made me laugh. "Chloe, I'm home." Before she could respond, I said, "Don't mind me. I'm just going to go upstairs and rest for a bit." I was up the stairs in a flash. Chloe lowered her gaze back to the paper in her hands and realized she was holding it upside down. The house was silent. She looked up at the grandfather clock on the wall. December 22nd, 2025, 3:34 p.m. Maybe this wasn't a dream. Maybe I was still alive. At 6:30, the sky outside was dark. Chloe had spent the entire afternoon in the living room, lost in thought. She was roused by the sound of footsteps on the stairs. She looked up to see me coming down, wearing a different outfit. Just then, my phone rang. I stopped on the stairs, answered it, and put it on speaker. It was Scarlett, one of Chloe's closest friends. "Ethan, where are you?" Hearing Scarlett's voice, Chloe's brow furrowed. She knew her friend well. When it came to attractive men, there wasn't one Scarlett couldn't charm if she set her mind to it. "Okay, I'm waiting." Scarlett's voice purred through the phone. "Ethan, I have to be honest, I've had a crush on you for ages. I never would have made a move because of Chloe, of course, but now that she's, living in her own little world, I figure it's finally my chance." "Is that so?" I replied smoothly. "I've always liked you too. Ever since I first met you on Chloe's private island, I thought you were beautiful. Just wait for me. I'm on my way." Maria stood frozen, staring after me as I walked out the door. She shook her head in disbelief. Good heavens, what was that all about? Miss Scarlett had a crush on Mr. Ethan, and he liked her back? Poor madam. Maria pitted her boss for a full 3 seconds. Just as she turned to go back to her work, a blur of motion shot past her. It was Chloe, grabbing her keys and storming out the door. In the car, Chloe gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. This wasn't a dream. This was real. She immediately dialed a number. Find Scarlett's location. Now. At that very moment, Sarah was answering that call in a hotel hallway. She relayed the hotel name and room number. As she hung up, she smiled. From the tone of Chloe's voice, she knew the dream was over. Ethan's method had been brutal, but in 3 days, he had accomplished what psychiatrists couldn't in 6 months. However, Sarah pushed the door open and re-entered their private suite. Scarlett was in the middle of popping a bottle of champagne, a gleeful smile on her face. To Sarah, it looked like the final, brilliant smile of the condemned. "Who was that, Sarah? You seemed eager to take that call," Scarlett said. "It was your sister." "Oh, is she asking about work again?" Scarlett pressed. Sarah didn't answer. She just gave Scarlett a look of profound pity, then walked to the farthest corner of the room and sat down. Emily spoke up. "How many bottles are you planning on opening? You're not actually going to try and make a move on Ethan, are you?" "You have to make it believable," Scarlett said, opening another bottle of wine. "We've known Chloe for years. When have we ever gotten the chance to see her lose her cool? This is a golden opportunity, and I'm going to enjoy it." Hearing this, Olivia moved to an armchair across the room. "I think you're playing with fire, Scarlett," she warned. "Chloe's been docile for the last 6 months because she was lost in her grief, not because she's changed." "You're worrying too much," Scarlett scoffed. "Yesterday, her mother threw a matchmaking party for Ethan, and he went on a date with Isabella to the Rose Club. Chloe didn't do a thing. Today will be no different." She was determined to go through with it. The chance was too good to pass up. Just the thought of getting one over on the unflappable Chloe Sterling made her giddy with anticipation. A few moments later, the door to the suite burst open. Scarlett, assuming it was me, jumped up and headed for the door, calling out, "Ethan, you're so fast. We just got off the phone." But when she saw the familiar figure standing in the doorway, the words died in her throat. She stared at Chloe, at the murderous look in her eyes, and a cold dread washed over her. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Why was Chloe here? And where was the docile, broken woman from the last 6 months? This was someone else entirely. The room fell silent. The other women in the suite wisely backed away into a corner, not making a sound. Sarah was the first to stand up, immediately distancing herself. "Madam, I was only here to keep an eye on things for you. I had no idea about any of this with Mr. Ethan." Seeing things were about to get ugly, Emily quickly added, "I was just worried about my brother." Olivia looked from side to side, then raised her hand. I don't really know Scarlett that well." Scarlett stood frozen, as if she'd been struck by lightning. She turned and glared at the 3 traitors, wanting to strangle them, so eager to watch the drama unfold, and so quick to abandon ship. But the murderous glare from behind her was far more terrifying. Scarlett swallowed hard and slowly turned back to face her friend. "Chloe, what I was really trying to do was..." Sarah cut her off. "Madam, what she was trying to do was make a fool of you. It was her idea to get a hotel room with your husband." "Yes, that's right," Emily chimed in. Olivia nodded vigorously. "I can confirm that." Scarlett's fists clenched. The pressure was immense, but she still tried to explain. "Chloe, it's not what you think. I was just trying to get you to... I'll call Ethan. I'll call him right now," she stammered, fumbling for her phone. Chloe's eyes never left her, and Scarlett's hand was trembling as she dialed my number. The second I picked up, she shrieked into the phone, "Ethan, Chloe's here. You have to get here right now. Ethan, help me. Please, save me." After the call ended, Chloe said nothing. Scarlett didn't dare move. No one dared to speak. The seconds ticked by in suffocating silence. I was just pulling into the hotel parking garage when Scarlett's call came through. I hadn't been driving slowly, but Chloe had still beaten me there. Just how fast had she been going? Hearing the panic in Scarlett's voice, I knew it had worked. Chloe was back. A smile spread across my face. I had finally pulled her out of the dream. The method was cruel but effective. I ran to suite 2103 and burst through the door, only to run straight into someone. I had run right into Chloe's arms. Before I could even react, she grabbed me and pulled me out of the room. After Chloe left, the tension in the room finally broke, and everyone let out a collective sigh of relief. Olivia stood up. "I told you you were playing with fire." Scarlett turned and glared at the 3 of them. "So that's how it is? You're all friends when it's fun, but the second there's trouble, you run. You're just figuring that out now?" Emily said, grabbing her coat. "It's getting late. I should get home. It's only 7:30. What's the rush? I have 2 kids." Just then, Sarah came back in from the balcony, where she'd been on the phone. She walked straight to Scarlett. "Miss Scarlett, your grandfather has asked me to escort you to the family home. He has something important to discuss with you. Also, Mrs. Sterling has instructed that you are to be barred from every club and restaurant in New York City. She also contacted your grandfather, who has instructed his bank to freeze your accounts. If you are not at the family home by 9 o'clock tonight, he will freeze all of your assets, including property, stocks, and all of your cars. Olivia burst out laughing. Well, looks like the party's over for you. Emily nodded. Sounds like he's calling you home to arrange your marriage. Scarlett stood there, numb, for a few seconds before her face crumpled in despair. I regret everything, she wailed. I should never have tried to mess with Chloe. You could joke with Chloe about anything, and she wouldn't care. Anything except me. You never ever messed with her when it came to me. That was crossing a line. The process might be thrilling, but the consequences were always devastating. The moment Chloe dragged me into another hotel suite and kicked the door shut behind us, I knew I was in trouble. She had me in a grip I couldn't break, and a shiver of apprehension ran down my spine. Chloe, you're awake now, right? This isn't a dream. This is real. I'm real. Before I could finish, she pushed me backwards. I stumbled, losing my balance and falling onto the soft bed. I looked up at the dangerous glint in her eyes and instinctively tried to scramble away. But before I could get far, she leaned down, grabbed my ankle, and effortlessly dragged me back. Her strength was terrifying. Chloe, what are you doing? I yelled. She grabbed my wrists and pinned them above my head. She glared down at me, her voice a low growl. That first time on the island, was it Scarlett you were looking at? No. What's so beautiful about her? It was an act. Chloe silenced me with a kiss, swallowing the rest of my words. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was fierce, possessive, and demanding. When I came up with this plan, I knew there would be consequences. I knew waking her up like this would unleash her temper, and I thought I was prepared for it. I know my wife. She's not someone to be trifled with. But no amount of preparation could have readied me for the storm that followed. I thought I'd be able to walk away afterward. I didn't expect to be left dazed and trembling, my legs like jelly, my body aching in ways I didn't know were possible. When I woke again, the sky outside was painted with the colors of sunset. I rolled over with my eyes still closed, and the moment I moved, she was kissing me again, cupping my face to deepen it. The lack of air finally jolted me fully awake, and I struggled until she finally let me go. Ethan, she murmured, you were asking for it. I sat up and rolled my eyes. What kind of wife is as ferocious as you? The kind you provoke, she retorted. She had been angry, yes, but she knew I would never cheat on her. She was confident enough in herself and in me to know that. But hearing me praise another woman, even knowing it was all an act, was more than she could bear. Chloe snuggled up against me, nuzzling my chest. You are never, ever allowed to even look at another woman again, she commanded. Ever. She was clinging to me like a koala, and I gently pushed her back a little. I know, honey. Chloe let go, got out of bed, and then pulled me out from under the covers, immediately wrapping herself around me again. The snow has stopped, she said. There's a beautiful sunset. Get dressed. I'll take you up to Mount Beacon to see it. Absolutely not, I groaned. I can't even walk. She knew exactly how much energy she had expended, and she knew I wasn't that weak. She knew I was faking it, but she loved it. Chloe ruffled my hair. Then I'll carry you. That sounds acceptable, I said, sitting up, but I'm not walking a single step. Of course not, she purred. I wouldn't dream of it. Her beautiful eyes sparkled as she snuggled back into my arms. She looked at me for a long moment, her embrace tightening. The doctors in Maine told me what you went through. You fought so hard to stay alive. I just grunted in response, not wanting to talk about it. Chloe looked up at me. Ethan, you've never actually said you love me. I'd like to hear it. Hearing this, I turned my head away and went completely limp, pretending to be asleep. It wasn't until we were in the shower that she finally got a response, after giving my but a few playful smacks. Talk to me, Ethan. You're being mean to me. And you hit me. That was a love tap, baby. The way she pouted made me laugh. I held her with one arm and used my free hand to squish her cheeks together, making her lips pucker. I laughed. You're so cute, honey. We looked at each other for a moment. Then she straightened up and wrapped her arms around my neck. I know. The winter in New York had been long and brutal that year, with storm after storm for nearly 2 months. But finally, the skies had cleared. The snow had stopped, and the evening sky was ablaze with an orange and red sunset that bathed the entire city in a warm, gentle light. On our way to Mount Beacon, a call came from the estate's security. The roads halfway up the mountain were still too icy and dangerous. So, Chloe chose a new spot, her private penthouse at the top of One Vanderbilt. The view from there was just as spectacular. We sat on a lounge chair on her private terrace, wrapped in a blanket against the chill. She lay in my arms, contentedly watching the sunset. The peaceful moment took me back. You know, I said, the first time I ever met you was at a dinner at your family's house. You were so two-faced, and your tongue was sharp enough to cut glass. My first impression of you was a negative 10,000. The golden light of the sunset softened her features, making her look almost angelic. As I looked down, she looked up, and our eyes met. She leaned in and kissed me, slowly, deliberately. When she pulled away, she was smiling. You weren't much better. The charming, sophisticated Ethan, getting into a fistfight in a department store. My eyes widened. You were there that day? I was shopping with Michael when I saw some idiot trust fund kid giving you a hard time. He was being completely unreasonable, so I slapped him. No wonder. The manager took a phone call, and when he came back, his whole attitude had changed. He immediately took my side, canceled the other guy's store membership, and had security throw him out. I looked at her, a slow grin spreading across my face. Be honest, you had a crush on me even back then, didn't you? But she didn't answer. She wasn't even looking at me. I followed her gaze to the terrace railing a few feet away. What was so interesting about a railing? It's getting dark, she said suddenly. What? I turned back to her. It's almost 7, of course it's getting dark. Oh right, dinner. Since you're still recovering, I'll cook tonight. We'll cook together. I thought she was talking about dinner, but then she stood up and said, very seriously, no, it's fine. The new recipe I learned is very simple. I can handle it myself. Just give me half an hour. With that, she threw off the blanket and pulled me up from the chair. What's going on? She led me over to the railing, her back to the glittering city skyline. She gripped the railing, and when she turned to look at me, a sudden, cold realization washed over me, and my heart skipped a beat. I shook my head frantically. Out here? In the open? Chloe, I don't think that's a good idea. The city at night, an open-air terrace. A scene from one of my novels flooded my mind. A very, very detailed scene that I had spent 2 entire chapters writing. The night was intoxicating, and I could see the desire deepening in her eyes. She took my hand, her grip firm, and whispered, let's just try it, honey. The one thing Chloe took more seriously than anything else in the world was bringing my novels to life, day after day, with tireless enthusiasm. And the biggest regret of my life was writing a novel with her as the main character. Every morning, I woke up filled with regret. When Chloe came into the bedroom after work, she found me lying on the bed, scrolling through my phone. She walked over and took my ankle in her hand. I instinctively twisted to look at her and saw the slow, wicked smile spreading across her face. It was our silent signal, the unspoken invitation. Let's play. I immediately flipped over and kicked her hand away with my other foot, scrambling backward. You promised. If you don't keep your word, I'm moving into your mother's house tomorrow. That night on the terrace, she had worn me down, whispering in my ear about how it would just be this one time, how I deserved to be compensated for my ordeal, how the shock of my methods had damaged her fragile psyche, and she needed to be compensated for that too. And in my dazed state, I had agreed. We spent the next week at the penthouse, where she proceeded to act out no fewer than 10 chapters from my books. I was utterly exhausted. When we finally went back to Gardenside, she promised to let me rest. That was 2 days ago, and now she was starting again. I instinctively pulled my feet under the covers. My reaction made her laugh. She admitted she had gotten a little carried away that week at the penthouse, that she couldn't control herself. I'll go get you something to drink, she said, her voice soft. Hearing that, I finally relaxed and nodded. My wild, wonderful days with Chloe had begun long ago, and they were far from over. One sunny day in March, I went with Emily and Chloe's younger sister, Lily, to take the kids to the park. I was spreading out the picnic blanket in Central Park while Lily unpacked the basket of food. Emily arrived a few minutes later, her driver helping her with the double stroller. Hey there, little guys. Let your uncle hold you, my adorable little Miles. The twins were 3 months old now. The older one was Leo, and the younger was Miles, the product of Michael and Emily's long and complicated romance. I wasn't particularly interested in their love story, having been the oblivious third wheel for over a decade, but I absolutely adored the babies. Amid all the fun, Emily remembered something important. She exchanged a knowing look with Lily. Lily spoke first. Ethan, you've been spending a lot of time with us lately. Doesn't Chloe mind? She's been swamped at work, I said, cooing at little Miles. Working late almost every night, doesn't get home until after 10. Well, in that case, Emily said, while Chloe's so busy, why don't you come on a trip with us? A trip? The three of you are going somewhere. Yep, we were thinking of a vacation in London, Lily chimed in. London, England? That was a coincidence. My dad had called just 5 days ago to say he, my mom, and Mrs. Sterling were all heading to London for a vacation themselves. He said it was the peak of the flower season, and that the cherry blossoms along the Greenwich promenades were all in full, beautiful bloom. We've already booked the flights, Emily added. We leave from New York on March 26th, and we already bought you a ticket, just in case. I didn't suspect a thing. Taking an early spring trip was something Emily and I used to do all the time. All right, I'm in. I'll work hard to get ahead on my writing this week so I can clear my schedule. You're too dedicated to your readers, Lily teased. A wealthy heir, writing thousands of words a day, more disciplined than a 9-to-5er. Anyone would think you were making millions off these books. You don't get it, I laughed. It's not about the money. Besides, it's not just for my fans online. Chloe and Lily love reading them too. At that very moment, in the CEO's office at Sterling Industries, Sarah knocked and entered. Her gaze fell upon Chloe, who was sitting on a Chesterfield sofa. The coffee table was covered with tiny, glittering diamonds and spools of thread, while a magnificent white wedding gown and a perfectly tailored tuxedo were laid out on the sofa beside her. Chloe had co-designed the dress herself, going through countless revisions with the couturier. A team of a dozen artisans in Paris had then spent nearly 3 months handcrafting it before it was flown over. I never got the chance to try on the tuxedo before the accident. It was a miracle that I had returned, that she would now have the chance to wear her gown. All those late nights Chloe had supposedly been working, she hadn't been at the office. She had been here, secretly finishing the intricate beadwork on the dress and tuxedo. Sarah stood silently in the doorway for a moment. She had been there through it all, watching our relationship grow from the very beginning. It was no exaggeration to say that Chloe had given me everything, that she would have torn out her own heart for me if she could. Snapping back to the present, Sarah walked forward with a cup of coffee. Madam, Lily just called. She said Ethan agreed to go to London on the 26th. Your mother also texted. She said the venue and all the decorations around the church are ready. She sent some photos. I forwarded them to your phone. Chloe's hands never stopped their delicate work. She didn't even look up, just murmured a soft, "Good." The ceremony was to be held at St. Paul's Cathedral in London. The route for the wedding car would pass by Greenwich Park, Hyde Park Corner, the sunset boulevards of South Kensington, Covent Garden, and past Big Ben, finally arriving at the flower-decked cathedral. Every single location was a place I had written about in my books, places I loved, a fantasy wedding I had created with words, and Chloe was making it all real. That night at Gardenside, I was on the sofa watching a movie after getting ready for bed. I'm usually a creature of habit, in bed by 10:30 sharp. But with Chloe working late recently, I'd taken to waiting up for her in the living room, leaving a light on so she wouldn't come home to a dark house. Right around 10:30, I heard the familiar sound of her car pulling up. I jumped off the sofa and ran outside without even grabbing a jacket. The moment Chloe stepped out of the Bentley, she saw me and ran straight into my arms. I caught her, holding her tight as our lips met in a warm kiss. I pulled her closer. Welcome home. Are you hungry? I can make you something. No, I'm fine. Why are you still up? Can't sleep without you here. When she came home this late, I could never fully relax until I heard her car in the drive and saw her step out. I worried she was working too hard, that it was too dark and dangerous for her to be driving so late. Do you have to work late again tomorrow? I'm afraid so. There's still a lot to wrap up. Just a few more days. We walked side by side from the twilight into the warm glow of our home. Later, in bed, I snuggled closer to her. Chloe, when things at work finally calm down, maybe we could start thinking about having a baby. I'd love to have a child with you, to be a family like Emily and Michael. Getting baby fever from your nephews? She teased. I absolutely adore those little guys, I admitted, crawling closer and wrapping my arms around her waist. But I want one that's ours. Chloe leaned back against the headboard, watching me. She reached out and gently stroked my cheek. If that's what you want, then that's what we'll do. Anything for you. You're the best, I said, giving her a hard kiss. Oh, the play I saw today was fantastic. It was this new romance. Let me tell you the plot. Okay, she said softly. I'm listening. I always wanted to share everything with Chloe. Anything I found interesting, or beautiful, or fun, I had to tell her about it. But by the time I finished my story, I looked over and saw she had fallen asleep. She was slumped against the headboard, the soft light of the lamp illuminating the deep exhaustion under her eyes. A wave of love and sorrow washed over me, so strong it brought tears to my eyes. Sterling Industries was a massive enterprise, and she ran it all by herself. It was too much. I leaned over and gently kissed her cheek. The next morning, Chloe woke to bright sunlight streaming through the window. She instinctively reached for me, but the space beside her was empty. She had overslept. After getting ready, she went downstairs and found Maria cleaning. "Where's Ethan?" she asked. "He's in the kitchen, madam," Maria replied, glancing in that direction. "He's been up since 6, said he was going to make you breakfast. He told us all not to disturb you, that you've been working too hard and needed to sleep." It was already 9. Sarah usually arrived at 8 to take her to the office. I must have called her and told her not to come. What did it feel like to have a husband who cared so much? Chloe was feeling it now, and it was a warm, wonderful feeling. As Chloe entered the dining room, I was just coming out of the kitchen with a steaming bowl of ramen. Her eyes lit up. "Honey, you're amazing. I could smell that all the way upstairs." "But of course," I said proudly. "I've been taking lessons from Maria in my spare time." She took the hot bowl from my hands. The porcelain was thin, and the heat immediately transferred to her fingers. "You should use oven mitts," I chided gently, "or let the staff carry it." She just gave me a sweet smile. "I'll remember for next time." She set the bowl down, and I immediately handed her a pair of chopsticks. "Go on, try it." The tomato ramen actually looked pretty good. The broth was a rich red, and the smell of tomato was inviting. It was topped with scallions, a perfectly crispy fried egg, and a few leaves of lettuce. Chloe took a thoughtful bite. The noodles were handmade. I'd gotten up at the crack of dawn to make them. They were a bit too thick, though, probably a pound of them in the massive bowl. The broth base was a freebie from that hot pot place we went to last week, after I'd raved about their tomato soup. "So, how is it?" I asked, sitting beside her and watching her face for a reaction. She took another bite, then turned to me with a smile. "It's really good, honey. You've definitely improved. Not quite as good as my cooking, of course, but not bad at all." I stood up. "I made some miso soup too. You keep eating. I'll go get you a bowl." After breakfast, Sarah arrived to pick Chloe up. As I walked her to the door, I mentioned, "By the way, I promised Emily and Lily I'd go with them on their trip to London. We leave on the 26th. I'm not sure when we'll be back." "Okay," she said. "As soon as I'm done at the office, I'll fly out and meet you there." I watched until the Bentley disappeared down the drive before heading back inside. On the morning of the 26th, our little group of 4, me, Emily, Michael, and Lily, met at the airport and boarded our flight to London. Olivia's family, the Carters, were an old and powerful English family, and she had already arranged everything for our arrival. A driver was waiting for us at Heathrow to take us to the family's country estate. The next day was bright and sunny in London. We took a car into the city and were strolling down Regent Street, which was bustling with people. Michael and I were laden with shopping bags when someone in a Doraemon mascot costume approached and politely offered me a flyer. I assumed it was for some tourist trap and was about to wave them off, but Emily took it first. "Wow, look, wedding dresses." Lily came over to look. "Oh, they're gorgeous. It says the new Chanel boutique is having a promotional event. They're looking for couples to model a wedding dress and tuxedo for a photo shoot, and you get to keep one of the outfits for free." "Seriously?" Lily's eyes went wide. She turned to the mascot. "Can I do it? I'll model for you, and you can give me the dress." The mascot shook its head, then raised a fluffy blue hand and pointed directly at me. "Oh, I get it," Emily said. "They want my brother. It makes sense. They need models who will actually look good in the photos to get the best publicity." Lily turned and grabbed my arm. "Ethan, please. I want the dress in the first picture. It's so beautiful. All you have to do is wear a tux for a few photos, and then you can choose the dress as your free item." I glanced at the picture of the dress on the flyer. It looked strangely familiar. It was almost identical to a dress Lily had tried on when I went with her to the Chanel boutique in New York a few weeks ago. The only difference was that this one was covered in tiny, glittering diamonds. It looked like a one-of-a-kind couture piece, not something you could buy off the rack. "Come on, Ethan, just try it," Emily urged. "You and Chloe will need a dress eventually, and maybe she'll love this one. And who knows, maybe the tuxedo will look great on you." Lily nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly, and it's free." I looked from one to the other, a suspicion dawning. "You two aren't plotting something, are you? You can never even agree on what to order for lunch, and now you're suddenly in perfect agreement. I smell a setup." Just then, the Doraemon mascot pointed down the street to a lavish storefront just a few doors down. Lily didn't wait for an answer, simply grabbing my arm and pulling me toward it. "Come on, Ethan, let's just go see." 3 minutes later, we were inside the Chanel boutique. The dress was displayed in the main window, and under the bright lights, The thousands of tiny diamonds scattered across the skirt glittered like stars. It was undeniably the most beautiful dress I had ever seen. I could immediately picture Chloe wearing it, and the image took my breath away. I had to admit I was tempted. Just then, the store manager hurried over, holding a brochure. "We'll have a photographer accompany you," she explained respectfully. "All you need to do is take a few photos at these designated locations, and at the end of the day, either the gown or the tuxedo is yours to keep. And please be assured, the photos will be used for promotional purposes only. We will take every measure to protect your privacy and image rights." Chanel was a reputable international brand. I felt I could trust them. I looked over at Lily, whose eyes were practically sparkling with excitement, and I caved. "All right, let's do it." "Okay, can you show me the locations?" The manager spread a map out on the counter. Several spots were circled in red: Greenwich Park, Hyde Park Corner, a street in South Kensington, Covent Garden, the area around Big Ben, and St. Paul's Cathedral. What a coincidence. Those were all my favorite spots in London. In fact, our plan had been to head to Greenwich to see the cherry blossoms right after we were done on Regent Street. "Sir, the tuxedo is upstairs," the manager said. "If you'll come with me, I can help you get dressed. We also have a stylist who can do your hair and some light makeup for the photos." I nodded. "Okay." I turned to the others. "You guys wait here, I'll be right back. It looks like the photo shoot locations are all on our itinerary anyway, so we can still see the sights." As I was talking, I noticed a couple of cameramen waiting just outside the boutique's entrance. Emily saw me looking and quickly jumped in. "Wow, Chanel is so professional. The photographers are here already, and we haven't even started." "Yeah," Lily added quickly. "They're probably just setting up their equipment." I looked away from the window and followed the manager upstairs. The three of them exchanged a look and let out a collective sigh of relief. Lily clutched her chest. "Why are the camera crews here so early? That was way too close." Emily laughed. "It's a global live stream. They've been following us since we left the estate this morning." "No way," Lily gasped. "I didn't notice a thing." Michael pulled out his phone and opened a live stream. The screen showed a live feed of the Chanel boutique, with the three of them clearly visible. Lily glanced at his screen. It was a major international streaming platform. She quickly pulled out her own phone, opened Twitter, and saw the #1 trending topic worldwide, #ChloeEthanWeddingLive. She clicked on it, and a flood of comments scrolled across the screen. "Ah, poor Ethan has no idea what's happening. He's just happily going off to change. This is the best ship ever. Crying real tears for them right now. OMG, everyone go look at Chloe's Twitter." Lily's curiosity got the better of her. She switched from the live stream to Twitter and went to Chloe's profile. The pinned tweet had been posted 5 minutes ago and already had over 50,000 likes and nearly 100,000 retweets, with the comments climbing by the second. But it was the content of the tweet that made Lily's jaw drop. "To celebrate our wedding day and share our joy, I will be randomly selecting 10 people from the comments praising my husband. Each winner will receive a beachfront villa." Beachfront villa. Her sister was really on another level, giving away prime real estate without a second thought. Before Lily could recover, Emily let out an impressed whistle. "Damn, Chloe doesn't mess around. I'm retweeting this right now." She noticed Michael was silently tapping away on his own phone. "Aren't you going to enter? A sterling beachfront property is literally priceless." Without looking up, Michael replied, "I'm already logged into my 4th burner account." Meanwhile, upstairs, the moment I stepped into the dressing room, every single one of the dozen staff members inside immediately picked up their phones. I was confused. Had some new celebrity scandal just broken? Why was everyone so desperate for gossip? The tuxedo fit like a glove. The cut, the drape, everything was perfect, as if it had been tailored specifically for me. The fabric was unlike anything I'd ever felt. The stitching was done with gold thread, and it came with a pair of handmade leather shoes and a luxury watch. This was beyond extravagant. Were they really just going to give this away? I stood on the raised platform, staring at my reflection in the full-length mirror, and for a moment, I felt like I was in a dream. "See? I told you he'd look amazing in that tux." Lily's dramatic praise snapped me out of my reverie. "Down, girl," I said with a laugh. Michael nodded. "No, she's right, you look great. Hey, why don't we ask if we can borrow their photographer to shoot a little video for us, as a souvenir?" The manager said they have matching dresses for us to wear. Lily added, "We could all ride in the parade car together for the photos." Emily pulled out her wallet. "I think that's a great idea. We can pay the photographer extra to follow us around for a bit. Girls always want to take pictures on vacation." I nodded. "Sure, we can pay him extra for his time." I had barely finished my sentence when a cameraman appeared from around the corner, his camera already on his shoulder. These guys were certainly efficient. Emily immediately walked over, pulled a thick wad of cash from her wallet, and stuffed it into the cameraman's pocket. "For your trouble," she said. "And there's more where that came from if the video turns out well." At that moment, the live streams were going wild with comments. "This teamwork is incredible. Poor Ethan doesn't stand a chance. LMAO, every time he gets a little suspicious, they shut it down immediately. Where did Chloe find these three? They're amazing actors. He might sense something is off, but there's no way he's guessing it's his own wedding." I turned to my sister. "Emily, can I borrow your phone? I want to video call Chloe." Lily had accidentally dropped my phone in the toilet the night before, and it was completely fried. Emily pulled out her phone, thoughtfully starting a FaceTime call to Chloe before handing it to me. It connected almost instantly, and Chloe's beautiful face filled the screen. "Chloe, I'm trying on this tuxedo in London, and it's incredible." I flipped the camera around to show her my reflection in the mirror. "Doesn't it look amazing? It fits perfectly. And look at the accessories. They're exactly like the ones I described in my book." The manager happened to walk by just then, so I asked her, "Is this replica of the Patek Philippe Grandmaster chime included as well?" She stammered for a moment before nodding stiffly. "Yes, sir, it is." I turned the camera back to my face. "Chloe, wait until you see the dress. It would look absolutely perfect on you. I'll show it to you in a minute. We're going to take some pictures now, but I'll send them to you tonight." As I was talking, I noticed the background behind her. "Are you not in the office?" Her expression didn't flicker. "I'm on a business trip," she said smoothly. "Meeting with a client in Philadelphia. I'll be back in New York this afternoon." I told her to work hard but not too hard, and we ended the call with a few jokes. 2 hours later, our horse-drawn carriage pulled to a stop in the plaza in front of St. Paul's Cathedral. I stepped out, and a little blonde girl immediately ran up to me, holding out a beautiful bouquet of flowers. They were a delicate, unusual variety I'd never seen before. "For me?" I asked. She nodded, stood on her tiptoes to place the bouquet in my hands, and then darted back into the crowd and vanished. Michael came up beside me, a smirk on his face. "Those are Astilbes. They symbolize love and a happy marriage. I guess this outfit is a dead giveaway." I laughed. She must have thought I was a groom. What a sweet, innocent kid. The three of them just smiled and said nothing. When it came to innocence, the most innocent person there today was a certain groom, who had been the target of a very elaborate 10-day-long deception. "Why is it so crowded over there?" Emily asked, craning her neck to see the entrance to the cathedral. "It looks like there's some kind of magic show going on. Let's go check it out." Emily took off running toward the crowd. But when she was still a few yards away, several people seemed to jump out of nowhere, grab her by the arm, and pull her into the throng. My heart leaped into my throat. Forgetting all about the expensive tuxedo, I plunged into the crowd, pushing people aside. "Emily!" I yelled, but the word died on my lips. The crowd parted, and in the center of the plaza was a massive heart made of thousands of red roses, spelling out 3 words: "Ethan, I love you." I froze, completely stunned. It was the cheesiest, most cliché romantic gesture imaginable, and I was so moved I could barely breathe. And in that moment, I finally understood. The trip to London, the photo shoot, all of it was a lie. This was my wedding. I looked around wildly, searching the crowd for her face. Just then, the massive digital billboard in the center of the plaza flickered to life. "Hi, Ethan. I'm one of your biggest fans. I hope you and Chloe have a love story as beautiful as the ones you write. Ethan, my man, I'm sending you all my love. Be happy. You deserve it." The messages went on, a chorus of well wishes from friends and fans. Then the crowd parted. I turned, and through a blur of tears, I saw her. We stood on opposite sides of the Heart of Roses, just looking at each other. She lifted the hem of her gown and ran to me, throwing herself into my arms. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "I love you, my husband." I looked down at her, wiping her tears away before wiping my own. "You tricked me," I whispered. "I really love this dress," she replied. Took me a second to realize what she meant. She was answering the question I had asked her 2 hours ago, on FaceTime from the Chanel boutique. "Come on," she said, taking my hand. "Everyone's waiting for us inside. We can talk about everything else later tonight, okay?" I had never felt a happiness so profound. A red carpet stretched for hundreds of feet from the plaza to the cathedral doors. I took Chloe's hand, and we walked down it together. The church was filled with our friends and family. Emily, already married, couldn't be a bridesmaid, but she stood in the front pew, leaning against Michael and sobbing with joy. Seeing her brother, who she'd grown up with, finally so happy, meant the world to her. The ceremony was traditional: vows before the priest, the exchanging of rings, and finally, the kiss. When Chloe rose on her toes to kiss me, I leaned down to meet her, returning her passion. The seconds stretched into minutes. My back started to ache, but she showed no signs of stopping. After another 2 minutes, I was really starting to feel it. I gave a subtle tug on her sleeve, trying to signal that it was time to stop, but she was completely lost in the moment, oblivious. A ripple of silent laughter went through the church. I finally had to give her a sharp pinch on the arm to bring her back to reality. She pulled back, sighing contentedly. "You've been here for 5 days," she whispered against my lips. "5 whole days without me touching you. I missed you so much." My ears burned. "There are hundreds of people watching us." "I'm kissing my husband," she retorted. "Let them watch." Who could control Chloe Sterling? Who would even dare to try? She didn't say the words, but I heard them loud and clear. That evening, the reception was in full swing on the grand lawn of the estate. Meanwhile, inside, in a private dressing room, a stylist was pinning Chloe's hair into a soft, simple updo while an attendant helped her out of her heavy wedding gown. I opened the door, walked over, and took the attendant's place. With a simple look from me, everyone else quietly filed out of the room. Chloe was busy adjusting the skirt of her reception dress and didn't notice me behind her. It wasn't until my hand came to rest on the bare skin of her back that she flinched, startled. She turned, and seeing it was me, she relaxed with a sigh. She gave me a gentle push. "When did you get here?" "As soon as I could politely escape from the guests." I stood behind her, just watching her for a moment. Then I slid my hands to her waist and leaned down to kiss the nape of her neck. Tickled, and she tried to push me away. "Stop it, you. Help me with these laces so I can change and get back to the party." I straightened up and obediently began to untie the satin ribbons of her dress. With every pull of the silk cord, I felt a growing warmth in my hands. Felt like I was unwrapping a present. She was my present. The gown pooled at her feet, and I bent to pick it up. She handed me her veil as well. "Just hang it in the closet. Sarah can have it shipped back to New York tomorrow." She was a little careless with it, and I quickly took it from her. "Be careful," I said, hanging it up myself. "You don't want to knock any of the diamonds off." This was the dress she had beaded herself. The words caught in my throat. I had only found out that afternoon that she had custom ordered the dress and then spent countless nights sewing on every single diamond by hand. All that overtime she'd been working had been spent here, hunched over this dress and my tuxedo, working until she had dark circles under her eyes. Seeing my hesitation, she teased, "This is what?" I scrambled for an excuse, but before I could think of one, her shadow fell over me. She kissed me, swallowing my unspoken words. She closed her eyes as she kissed me, and I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her tight against me.